in Morocco and Amman, Jordan. He currently serves as an adjunct professor at the American Allied University and Taru University as well. Let's give a hand for our speaker.
Thank you for a hearty welcome. I really am honored to be here. I got the invitation in a sauna with my dear friend there. Said he would be honored for me to come out again and speak at the university. Now I have to make a confession. Last night when I should have been thinking about my speech, I was thinking about Coach. I was thinking that maybe he'd let me play tight end on the team. I think I'm big enough. Whereas the Army chaplain, I think I have to tell you about the power of God. I feel obligated to do that. I was counseling this young lady, an older lady, and it got pretty late. So I thought it'd be the gentlemanly thing to do. So I took her back to her house. And as soon as she got to the door, she said, "Stop in the name of God, Acts 2:38. And there was a young man in there stealing some of her stuff. So I called the police, and the police came in. I'm an intuitive type person. I said, "Why did you stop for an old lady hollering Bible verses?" He said, "Bible verses? She had an Acts in 2:38. I'm glad you laughed. That was my best joke. Now, I've been given the subject here of the dream and the 40 acres. And I was thinking about my subject in between thinking about Coach. And I thought about the dream, I thought about theory, I thought about hypotheses, I thought about stats, and I said, well, I can do that. I'm a smart guy, I can think about dreams. I can think about putting those things into existence. But then I started thinking about the 40 acres part. I thought about tilling the soil, picking cotton, callous hands, and I started sweating, and I didn't know what to do with myself. So I said, you know, I need to change the subject. So I want to talk about Dr. King today from a new perspective, a little different perspective. I want to focus on you as an individual and how his dreams were supposed to impact you for the collective. I want to tap into your cognitive consciousness and deal with sometimes our inability to face our fears. Your cognitive dissonance when it comes to sacrificing for the whole as opposed to your own particular station in life. Now I want you to consider, I have been in combat 7 times. I'm a pastor and I'm a soldier. So if I jump down on the floor and start low crawling to the door, I'll be back. I have a little flashback from my rap. It's not mine. But what I want you to do today, for me, I want you to turn on your gender. I want you to turn on your race, your academic standing, and even your theological leanings. I think it's relevant to my subject. I want you to listen to the sound of my voice because my subject deals directly with race, directly with theology, and directly with your gender as an individual, as it completes the whole. My subject might make you a little uncomfortable if you're not comfortable with yourself. Secondly, my subject might make you a little uncomfortable if you're too comfortable with yourself, as opposed to fighting for those who are receiving injustices in your proximity. Lastly, my hope is that you go home and see yourself as an instrument of progress instead of being a tool manipulated by myths, misinformation, misconceptions, and myopic thinking. To do this, I'm going to need some audience participation. I believe in a dialogical lecture, so I would need a little call and a response. I'm not Baptist, but I've been told I have some leanings. So if I get the spirit up here, just don't mind. So now let's get down to business. I hope you're ready for this. My subject today, are you ready? My subject is what other people think about you ain't none of your business. I'm going to say that again because I don't want you to miss that. What other people think about you ain't none of your business. With a subject like that, I might need some shields up here. I don't want anybody throwing the tomatoes at me. But I need your strength on this one. I want to stand on your shoulders like we stood on the shoulders of those strong men and women who came before us. Feel free to get up in the aisles and dance and holler. But let me remind you, there are 300 iPhones in here. You could be on YouTube instantly. I think sometimes when I think in my own mind, that sometimes we're too stuck on race. While it is true that race has its importance, I think sometimes we're too stuck on history, though history is relevant. I think sometimes we're too stuck on our heroes, as opposed to the ideas they were trying to relay to us. When I look back at our leaders, the best of them sought to get us to look beyond the confines of race, ethnicity, and color to enhance the reality of a people who were to receive this legacy and their ideas and their courage. These men and women appear to be fighting against ethnicity and color. But my question for you today is, were they? I believe Dr. King said it best. He said, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. I think our scripture lines up with that when it says, we war not against flesh and blood, but principles and principalities and the spiritual wickedness in high places. You see, the fight doesn't always come in a different ethnicity or a different color. Most of the time it comes clothed in integrity and principles. Most of the time it comes in your standing firm on what you say you believe. Until you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will never change. Oh, I'm going to say that again. Until you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will never change. I heard a wise man say the reason why evil exists in the world is that good people stand by and do nothing. When I think about my subject, what other people think about you ain't none of your business. When I think about my subject, I think about the white abolitionists Hosea Wedgwood and Thomas Clarkson, who went against the majority of their people in their own ethnicity, their own race, and their own best interests. They risked their lives in order that their black brothers and sisters might be free and treated with some dignity and respect. I think about the founding fathers, and who fortuitously put in the Constitution that all men were created equal with unalienable rights to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness at a time when slavery was full-blown and we were considered 3/5 of human beings. What courage it must have taken to be an abolitionist in a time when loving a person of this view could have cost them their lives. You don't get me. What courage it must have taken for the writers of the Constitution to write a document that would could even endanger their own lives for the freedom, justice, and equality for us all. Do you think everybody was happy with them? Do you think that some people from their own ethnicity were putting some pressure on them to stay in the common thought of the people, the common run of the day? Now, I have a vivid imagination. So I imagine what these men were saying and how they got together. I think they got in a huddle, and all of them alone were shaking. But when they held hands together, I think Thomas Jefferson looked at Benjamin Franklin. I think John Adams looked at Alexander Hamilton, and they held hands in a huddle. And they said, guys, what other people think about you ain't none of your business. Martin Luther King was told by his father, his wife, his friends, and his fellow pastors, he said, man, don't get in that civil rights stuff. You're a new pastor. It's an insurmountable task. You're going to be seen as a troublemaker. You're going to ruin your career. People are not going to like you. What about your kids? Think about your future, Pastor. Martin said, what other people think about you ain't none of your business. Swarner and Goodman, two Jewish students from well-to-do families. They were told it's not your fight. You're college graduates. You're going to be branded in a negative light. You could lose everything that your parents sacrificed for you children. Isn't that what we hear? Be good citizens. Keep your head down. Earn some money. Get a fat ride in a White House and a white picket fence. Swan and Goodman said, if they are not free, we are not free. What other people think about you ain't none of your business. Rosa Parks. She was so tired one evening, she decided to sit down and not give up her seat. It sparked the whole movement. But what you don't know is, her husband didn't want her to do it. Her job fired her. Her house was firebombed. She was called a traitor by the establishment that she had worked so hard her whole life to build a legacy for. Her husband said, Rosa, you are ruining our good name in this town. People are jeering at us. Rosa said, I'm going to sit so one day they can stand. What other people think about you ain't none of your business. I remember my mother. I don't want to get teary-eyed up here. I remember my mother. Like many of you who are out there, she worked from can't see morning to can't see night for little pay. She made $435 a month. She moved us away from the violence and the mayhem. Her mortgage was $35 a month, $335 a month because she didn't want to rent and she wanted to get us to a better neighborhood. Her friends were talking about her saying she was living above her means. But what her friends didn't know, sometimes we didn't have lights. Sometimes we didn't have water. We had a constant diet of sugar sandwich and government cheese. I didn't say government, I said government cheese. I know I'm an educated man, I said government cheese. We were so broke that we had two TVs that were broke. One was on the floor that had the picture, and the other one was on top that had the sound. We went to the thrift store and got all of our clothes. There were 2 sizes, 3 sizes too big, so we were children a better life. So she said, what other people think about you ain't none of your business. I hope you're ready for this one. Buckle your seatbelts because I want to challenge your thinking on this one. I believe that racism, discrimination, and prejudice are gifts from God. Oh my God. Hey, y'all need to vet the speakers that come here to University of Texas. They say this boy didn't flip his lid. I believe that racism, discrimination, and prejudice are gifts from God. God uses the struggle to forge us into great men and women. It is through these trials that we build our character. Our character is developed, and it is in these times fortitude is forged. It is in these times one finds a measure of himself. Now I'm a chaplain, but I'm looking for a word that I can give you that sums up all of these great academic words. We have to have testicular fortitude. I think that's better. What do you think? That's a chaplain. I don't want to get thrown out of the army. You see, these aforementioned people and our beloved Dr. King, they were resilient despite racism, prejudice, and discrimination. They forged ahead because they understood, like we must understand, that if your identity is wrapped up in the thoughts of others, you will never fulfill your purpose. You will never fulfill your destiny that God has for you. You have to be a staunch believer, and believing what other people think about you ain't none of your business. Now I'm coming to you, students, teachers, faculty, and all of those who hear my voice. What a responsibility you have. What a responsibility that God has given you to affect human life. It is great to have Dr. King's pictures on our wall. We can say, oh, what a great champion he was for all of us. We can tell great stories of the things that he did in the civil rights era. But if you're just doing that, you're still in your pajamas and you haven't waken up from the dream. To teach your kids how to fly, you have to have wings. You have to sacrifice. You have to give your life to ensure that they move forward. The man that you see before you found that identity on a Texas street with a bullet in my back, being beat with a shovel within an inch of my life. And while I was down there, all I could think of was, God, just give me another chance and I'll sacrifice all that I have for you. Theodore Roosevelt said, it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doers of deeds have gone and could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood. My question to you as I leave you, are you in the fight? Are you fulfilling the dream? Or are you just staring at the pictures on the wall saying, I wish I had the courage to do that? I believe you do. Because I picked myself up off of that street and I made a promise to myself that I was going to sacrifice my total being to the educational process. And I'm going to tell you what changed me. I'll sit down. It was one quote I want you to hear it. It says most people die at 25, but they're not buried until they're 75. I gotta say that again. Most people die at 25, but they're not buried until they're 75 because they give up on their hopes and dreams. They face a little adversity. They worry about what people are thinking about them, and they cow down. So, 3 things that changed me, and I'll sit down. Pastors always say that, by the way. I read a book one time, and it was talking about the difference between a boy, a male, and a man. The book said if you read for 30 minutes and play sports for 6 hours, you're still a child. It said if you have more stereo equipment in your car than books in your library, you're still a baby. And I'm going to tell you what changed me. It said if you're playing PlayStation while other people are building space stations, you're an agent to your own suicide. What other people think about you ain't none of your business.